Good afternoon, everyone. Can I first of all just do my preamble first that we've always got to do? So welcome to the meeting of Inverclyde's Education and Communities Committee. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. As the Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and Data Protection Act 2018, we broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meetings protocol, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to participants of the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. So thank you, well, that's that. So what I would say, can I thank members for coming today at 1 o'clock. And the reason we've started at 1 o'clock today is we've got a presentation from the schools at 4 o'clock. And because there was possibly some contentious items, we wanted to make sure that members have enough time to fully go through the communities agenda as well, without needing to worry about looking at the clock or without officers getting worried about the time. So can I thank you very much for that. And can I go on for apologies, declarations of interest and a roll call? Diane?
We have no apologies intimated. Convener will now move to an attendance roll call before proceeding to the declarations of interest. When the following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting either in person or remotely. Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in person.
Councillor Cofferty.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McGuire.
Present remotely.
Councillor McVeigh.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Moran.
Present remotely.
Councillor Quinn.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Yeah, so it's agenda item 6, Inverclyde Leisure Board.
And Diane, that's the same as myself.
Convener,
Robert?
I was once a patron of the Dan Donnell's window, which is on the agenda as well.
Okay, thanks, Robert.
Good.
But you don't feel as if it's enough of an interest that it means you don't need to take part in the discussion?
Absolutely not. I want to take part in the discussion.
Thank you, Robert. Anyone else? Elizabeth?
Paper 4 and paper 7 both mention Chaos Youth Theatre. I'm chair of Chaos Youth Theatre, but there's no decisions, just for transparency.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Kirsty?
On paper 2 and 3, I have volunteering with the Law Institution, and I have a family interest in the Caddo Hill Community Gardens.
Again,
Nothing that would stop me participating.
Can I just say to members as well, when we get to item number 6, the Inverclyde Leisure Strategy Asset Review, as you'll probably know, there's a lot of business in the private papers and appendix for that. So what I would ask the members to do, if they've got any questions on the appendices, if they can just hold it, and I'll move into private session at the end of the committees. So we can bear that in mind. I will move into private session again, just in case you have any questions on that. And with that, we can start, can move on to agenda item number 2, and that is the Community Revenue Budget Report. And it's Mary that's going to take us through that. Mary?
Yes, thanks, Convener. This is the regular revenue report up the revenue position for the communities part of the budget. The current projection is an overspend of 58,000, details of which are contained within the report.
Mary, can you possibly move a wee
It
bit?
should be noted that
Mary, can you move a wee bit closer to your microphone? You're breaking up a wee bit.
Is that better?
Yeah, is that better, Councillor Wilson?
It sounds better, yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. You can start.
I just need to see my face bigger. The current projection is an overspend of 58,000, details of which are contained within the report and the appendices. It should be noted that the education budget is projecting a small underspend, which partially offsets this, and that's reported later in the agenda. Committee is asked to note the current projected overspend for 22-23, and also to note that the management team will continue to review areas where non-essential spending can be reduced in order to bring the committee back on budget. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mary. Do we have any questions from members? James?
Thanks, Convener. I'd like to submit a motion regarding this agenda item, specifically around libraries and museums revenue. And it's that committee agrees that an electronic donation terminal in the Watt Institution is a good idea for raising additional revenues, and that a report on costing implications and timescales generated by officers to be ready for the next Communities Committee, 24th of January 2023.
Thanks, James. Ruth, you would comment?
Yes, through you, Convener. This is something we had already had sight of, and I know Alana, who's on the call, had been giving this some thought. So happy to bring a report back to the January committee on the implications and the costings. I'm looking at Alana and she's nodding as well. So that's good.
James, is that okay?
Thank you.
Yep, and we'll include that in the recommendations. Any other member? Can we agree the recommendations with that addition from James? Agreed. Can we move on to agenda item number 3, which is the Communities Programme progress related items, and that will be introduced by Hugh. Hugh.
Thank you very much, Convener. Good afternoon, everybody. This is a report to just give us an update where we are with our community's capital spend for this financial year. Within my report, we have a budget across communities of 1.779 million for 22-23. At the moment, we've got a net slippage of 0.639 million, which is 26% of the overall report. Apologies that the appendix paper was mistakenly not sent out, but it's now been sent out to you earlier on this afternoon. Within the report, I give an update of some of the key projects that we're still working through at the moment. Myself and Eddie can comment on any of the things that highlighted under 3.5 right to 3.6. Just to give you a couple of things that's probably critical for you. The Lady Allen's Bowling Club, I know there's been a lot of concerns about that, but that is now progressing very well, and that hopes to be finished, completed early 2023. The indoor tennis, as you've been previously reported, has been advised of the progress with that into the tennis programme, and we will be waiting to see what the testing markets. We've done the testing of the markets, and that's now a part of the process for the budget review of the overall corporate budget going forward for capital. Key other things just to make you remind you is 3.9, the King George building for Glasgow. The work is now commenced on site. And the initial work for the groundworks is for preparation and foundation changes is going ahead. There is a slight delay in that because we found a major water pipe underneath, but officers are working through that with the contractor. Just on the community external partners, Craigend Resource Centre is probably nearly completed. There's some just groundworks to be finished and a final bill to be settled back through Craigend Resource Centres and the council, and also the lottery fund, but that is nearly completed overall site, and anybody who would like to go and see that are more than welcome. There will be an official opening on that once we just get everything finished. Amberclyde Shed, again, we've had some delays within that due to getting materials on site, but it's progressing well. As you see, it's probably been lying quite empty at the moment, and the structure's empty, but all the stuff is now starting to arrive on site. Again, that date of that entry has now been pushed back to early 2023 to do that. Park Lane branching out, again, we're starting to work through that. As previously said at the committees, we have, or branching out have appointed agents to look at the developing the site. Plan permission has now been sought for, moving forward with that. Key thing for that is the identity of an increased cost of materials and things like that. So we're working very closely with the contractors and branching out to try and reduce the cost of the overall building. So at the moment we've only been awarded 1.1 million, and there is an increased cost of that, but we are looking at more to try and get that back in on budget. I'm happy to take any questions in any other projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Do we have any questions? Elizabeth first. Elizabeth?
Thanks, Convener. I've got a couple of questions. Well, one's a question, one's a bit of a gripe, I suppose. 3.8, the Waterfront Leisure Centre chain pool movable floor. It's just been going on such an inordinate amount of time. I don't really have anything to add other than, oh my goodness, it's going on such an inordinate amount of time. This is pre-COVID. We've been looking at this almost the entire time I've been a councillor. We've been looking at this issue. And I just don't understand why it's taking such an amount of time. I guess there's technical issues and everything, but it's getting to the point where I'm just going, none of this stacks up. It's my first point.
Can I maybe, because it is a justified good point, can I maybe get Eddie to comment on that, because it's something that was paid herself. Eddie, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that through you, Convener. I mean, the contract is fairly specialist in nature, as you'll appreciate. The actual letter of acceptance has been issued for some time now, but because there is a contractor's design element to this, that has to go out early in the process to allow the contractor and the specialist subcontractor to then progress the design to the point where they can submit a building model. So it is not your typical construction contract. There is more of a lead time involved in it for design. There's also a significant lead time involved in it for manufacture of the floor itself. And then the actual site period is actually a fairly short period in comparison to the overall contract. So the complications we've had are with the design element of that now that the contract's been let. So the specialist subcontractor has to go through a series of processes, including diverse surveys of the pool to get exact measurements of how he's going to construct the actual pool floor. And that's been complicated by the fact of obviously the pool floor itself that's existing doesn't operate, so it's been difficult to arrange that process. And there's been 2 attempts which we've now concluded, and now the final part of that jigsaw was obtaining some of the original construction information which we held in paper records within our basement to allow the contractor designing the pool floor to understand the construction of the pool tank, which is obviously there from the original construction, and that is now allowing the design progress to get to a point where we now will better be receiving a programme from the contractor very shortly. But we've advised the committee already that went black there for a second. We've advised the committee already that the expenditure will go into the next financial year, and that's just because of this process and how long it takes to get through the design, the statutory approvals and the manufacture before the thing can actually arrive on site. But the contract is let, it is a live contract, and we're managing it through that process.
Thanks, Eddie. Is that full?
I knew there would be technical reasons. It's just it's been there. It's just almost been intractably there in our report. And then when you see second quarter 2023, and you're going, my goodness, this isn't even close to conclusion. It was a great. I've nothing else to add other than the issue.
I think it's important that we do get the technical answer. It's a bit like, you know, sorry for that one, but if you think of ones like the tennis facilities, another one quite like that, and Gourock Primary School, there's another one from the education point of view that will go on and lay in the committees, a bit like that. So it's worth having a try. Have you got your other question?
Second one is not a great, it's a question. 3.13, the update on the asset transfer working group. I think it's really useful that we have that, and I think it's really useful that we're providing information outward facing to the public in terms of the potential for asset transfer. So I think it's a step in the right direction. The question that I've got is, do we offer in amongst that, and this is my ignorance, I haven't looked on the website, a proactive list of potential assets that we think the community might be interested in, or is that a step too far for us?
No. I'll keep coming on.
Okay. You?
Convener, I can take that one. Yeah, it's a very good question, Councillor. It's something that we're certainly looking at to take forward. We are about to we've got a timescale to develop the website wider to make sure there's more information on it. But we are hoping to do that and make sure that there is a robust plan within the website for anybody to know what's available on the site for either a possible asset transfer or obviously lease or anything like that, but that's something we're certainly looking at the present moment. We're hoping to have the website upgraded and hope to have another report on that by the next committee.
Thanks, Hugh.
Thanks for that, it's really helpful. I think that'll be a really useful addition to what we're providing to the public.
And I think it was one of the things from our meeting with the Ayrshires the other week there, it was something that was quite transparent. They seem, or some of them seemed ahead of us in that as well. Robert?
I thank you for that, and please, I'd like to apologise for my lack of knowledge, but it is 3.13 as well, and it's the work is currently taking place to update and revise information on the council webpage, including development guidance of communities how to go about asset transfer. Could I maybe suggest that there's an all-member briefing on this, or the information required is given to members, because I'm certainly asked a lot of questions with my constituents, and quite honestly, I do apologise for my lack of knowledge on it, but I don't actually have the answers for them. So I, for one, would like to get more information on it as an elected member, never mind the members of the public.
I'm looking at my corporate director here, Ruth. Is that something we can?
Yes, we could do that. I'm just thinking it was part of the induction process was on the Community Empowerment Act, but perhaps we could look in more in depth about the asset transfer. It was myself who took that session, so I'll take that as a learning point.
Is that okay, Robert? We'll put that in the recommendations.
Actually, I heard, you know, I'm saying the nuts and bolts of it. Will we be given that information as elected members to convey to our constituents? Are there going to be an all-members briefing on it, or will you send the information directly to councillors who are interested in this, so we know the answers to give our constituents?
Yeah, we can do a members briefing, Councillor Moran, and look at the different stages. I think from what we were previously looking at, it was communities' readiness to put in a bid that we particularly wanted to develop as well. You know, what this making sure that the asset transfers, they're putting into the asset transfers with as much information as they possibly could. So Tony's leading a group looking at that, and we could talk you through the different stages in the process.
Is that okay, Robert?
I'm afraid I'm still a bit ambiguous, that answer, because what I do is what they ask me and I don't know. And at the moment I don't know. You know, I really need some further information on it so I can convey to my constituents.
Councillor Moran, there is a one-stop shop email address that Tony, I can see Tony's got his hand up to come in there, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, Tony.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, it's just to say, I suppose, that, you know, that it's a recently established asset transfer working group that's working from every service across the council, and it's only been a couple of months in its development, but we will certainly, you know, the whole purpose of setting the group up was to establish that one-stop shop so that we can advise, and I think we've said that in a previous committee, if anyone's got an inquiry, they can go in through the website and we will answer any questions. The whole purpose of the group was so that we understand where the applications are coming in from, and because they do come in from various sources, and the whole point of this is to try and coordinate it. Certainly, Councillor Moran, if there is a particular issue, then either contact myself or Hugh, and we will give you what you need to know.
Robert, thanks for Tony, because I don't think it's acceptable that we go into a website. If we're elected members, I think we should be able to contact somebody and get the information required, quite honest with you. So if I give them today, I'm quite happy with it. But I certainly, if people ask me, I haven't got a clue, quite honest with you. So I really need something tangible to tell them, you know.
So we'll get Tony and Hugh to send out the contact information and the details regarding the asset transfer. We've already agreed we will do a members briefing on it, and hopefully with the answer we give Elizabeth as well with regard to a sort of register of possible alternatives. I do think it's fair to say, look, we're probably a wee bit behind in this, but maybe not the council's fault in total. We seem to be moving forward on it. Is that okay, Robert?
Aye, that's fine. Thank you, convener.
Okay. Lynn?
Yeah, it's just I thought it was worth on this agenda, item 3.13, the asset transfer. So obviously this started actually as a motion at full council when Councillor Alford was still here, seconded by myself. So it was about the experience that we had as elected members trying to help community groups navigate this process. So it would be really good if we could link it back to that motion that went to full council, which detailed some of the issues, just so that we then know as elected members that those issues that we raised have now been addressed with the new process. But I'm really glad to see the working group there and some of these things being ironed out. That might answer Robert's question as well.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. I think it's always good to give a live example. So maybe when Ruth's looking to do the members, she can bring that in as a sort of live example of where we've learned the lessons. No other member on the chat? Any other member?
Tommy.
Oh, Tommy, sorry.
Thanks, convener. I'm Rachel Rental, Dennis. As we know, this cost has increased over the last couple of years, and I know for the report that we have, it hasn't managed to be reduced a lot from the various parties on that. Now, given what has been told us several times, if you remember, was it what put that capital under pressure, and there's another little which we have to either reduce the capital program or stop projects altogether. Are we at the stage where this project stops, or if we really fund it, then we stop something else? Thanks.
Hugh, do you want to start on this one?
Yes, convener. Obviously, we are at a process we've met with the stakeholders, and obviously at the present moment, the cost of the overall build is still increased as we expected it would be when we've done the market testing. I think the stakeholders are still willing to commit funding within the communities to do the tennis in the area as the stakeholders. But I think the fundamental thing now is it worth value for money. So I think that there's about a debate again about how we take this forward and looking at the overall costs. And I think that's needing more discussion internally to see how we can take it forward.
Okay, Tommy.
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask members to agree the recommendations? As you can see, it does say the tennis facility will be considered as part of the council's overall budget. And we'll just note that there will be a members briefing on, if that's okay, then we can agree that.
Agreed.
Great. And we move on to agenda item number 4, which is the community's update report. Tony, you're going to take us through that?
Yes, thanks, convener. I won't go through the reports, it's quite lengthy, but just to give the updates have been provided on some of the significant development cultural services, including, I suppose, the development of the work streams in relation to the historic links to slavery working group. And I know Alana's got another paper coming to follow this. I've also provided an update on community safety and the planned 16 days of activism, which we do every year, and also the introduction of Control the Bleed kits as well. And you may have seen some of the publicity around that in the press. I've also given an update on the successes of our CLD services programme through the summer. So it's not just the affordable childcare that we run, but there's obviously a number of activities that we run for families and young people through the summer, and that's just to give, I suppose, highlight the good attendance at these events. And I've also given an update on the Warm Hand of Friendship. And also there's a masking committee that further report that I was planning to bring on the under-16s swimming, that given that this is part of the overall budget exercise for next year, that is considered as part of the budget rather than coming back to this committee. So happy to take any questions on any aspect of it.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Kirsty first.
Thank you. I would just like to put my congratulations on record for the great work that was done over the summer activity programme for the young people in Inverclyde. And on that, I just wondered if there was any of the services that we offered that perhaps never met the sort of expectations in terms of numbers, and specifically on the Affordable Childcare Summer Programme. I noted that the Scottish Government provided £131,000 in funding to help with that. So how did that help with the provision of affordable childcare in this area?
Tony?
Yeah, so a lot of our services are demand led, and it's quite difficult to predict over the summer who's going to participate, but we always try and respond to the need within that. Inevitably, there are some families that don't show up. There are some things that don't, that for various reasons. So we always try and respond over that period. I don't know if Hugh would be able to come in terms of, I'll let you come in a second, Hugh, about the expectations of that, but because we put it out there and see how many we need, and then we try and staff it accordingly to try and reduce the amount of waste, I suppose, and the inefficiencies. In terms of the affordable childcare, this was obviously part of a summer holiday programme, and part of that was that we added to that to provide the free play scheme places as well. So 131,000, although it sounds a lot, it still probably isn't sufficient to cover everything for free. So it certainly contributed to a lot of the activities over the summer, but we did have to prioritise the families in need and those that were specifically related to the Scottish Government guidance. Hugh, could you come in and tell me in terms of any of the services that you think didn't meet the expectations in terms of numbers?
Yeah, for yourself, Convener, thanks very much. There was a couple of things that we were a wee bit disappointed on, is about young people not participating in some of the outdoor sports stuff. But again, we've changed the model for October week, and we've seen an increase on participation around that. Sometimes what we have done is we've now brought a new system in place so that we can go out to parents and young people quite early to see what we're going to do around the summer programmes and October programmes. But it has changed over the period, over the October week, so it's good to see that with just a couple of wee tweaks in terms. What we're primarily seeing is quite a lot of the young people engaging within the activities in youth work and sport is more around secondary schools, because over the summer, as Tony's mentioned, with affordable childcare, and that was done in 3 different ways this time. We've done the universal play scheme, the enhanced play scheme, and then we've done another part of the play scheme to look at more working with other children who maybe need more extra support through that. So that's all been evaluated and back to the Scottish Government, and what we're doing at the present moment now is just reviewing that with Scottish Government, and we'll come back with more relevant information. We're hopeful that we will get more additional money going forward for the affordable childcare. We are within the report, as Tony's mentioned, within Tony's report, but we're now at adopter for another project looking at after school care and employability, after school care and early care for young people in Port Glasgow as a pilot. So we'll get more information back to committee on that as soon as we've got more information coming. Happy to any questions.
Thank you.
Kirsty, I'm going to let Ruth maybe comment on the problems we've had with staff as well at that point. Ruth?
So looking particularly at the affordable childcare and the summer programme, although we enhanced our offer through Play for All and also had a tier 2 system looking at enhanced offer through Wellington, I would have to say that the specialism of staff to be able to have the knowledge and ability to cope with children with more complex needs is difficult to find over the summer holidays. The people who have the knowledge are also taking their holidays at the same time. So that is something that we will have to keep thinking through as we take anything forward. What I would also say is at the beginning of a summer, when we've had a booking system for the affordable childcare, we tend to see people who we've rejected in the first instance, so parents have had to make different arrangements. But then quite often people have pre-booked and don't turn up as well. So we have quite a changeable first week. where people have booked places, perhaps aren't taking those places, and we can offer them to other people, but then they've made alternate arrangements as well. So there are two things that we probably need to keep an eye on going forward. But as you said, we're an early pathfinder for some further government funding to look at childcare, and we'll keep working in partnership.
Okay, thanks. Interesting. Natasha?
Yes, thanks, convener. My question is just around the 3.12, the Warm Spaces update. We talk about getting a directory put together. Are we going to be looking for any areas across Inverclyde that maybe don't have as much provision? And if so, are we then going to look at ways of getting provision put into that place, whether it be to ourselves or third sector or whatnot?
Tony, do you want to take that one? Is that the Warm Spaces map type of thing? Tony?
Yeah, so there's actually more work since this report was written around the Warm Space Initiative, and I think it's going to Policy and Resources Committee in terms of the anti-poverty work. And it's really, we will be looking at and trying to establish those other areas that maybe we haven't captured in the first round through local churches and things like that as well to see. And we will be able to have I suppose a more comprehensive picture once we get the information back from CVS around the grants as well, to see where perhaps are there certain areas that we're not providing for, and we'll take that back through the anti-poverty group and see if we can plug some of those gaps if we can.
Thanks, Tony. Is that okay, Natasha?
Okay, thank you. Yep, thanks, convener. Thanks, Tony.
Any other questions? If not, Elizabeth?
It's not a question, I just waited till the end there. I've missed a declaration, so can I just add in a quick declaration for this paper as well? The 3.1 is still under the Culture Collective, but Inverclyde Faith and Through Care, I'm involved with that group as well, so I should have mentioned that too.
Anne's got that. Okay, so back, can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
And can we move on to agenda item number 5, which is the Gourock Borough coat of arms proposals. Alana, this is your baby.
Thank you, convener. Members will be aware that this is the second of 2 reports to come before this committee on the subject of Inverclyde's historic links to slavery. The previous report made a number of recommendations which were agreed, and which included the removal from display where practicable of the Gourock Borough coat of arms. It was also agreed that a further report be brought back on the practicability of removal in each instance where the coat of arms could be found. The purpose of this report is to present members with the options appraisal carried out on each instance of the Borough coat of arms currently known by officers, to make recommendations on each of these, and further to seek approval to progress with contacting other organisations or responsible bodies which may use or display the Borough coat of arms to inform them of the council decision, and also to progress with a new coat of arms for the Gourock area. I'd just like to highlight that the Borough coat of arms will be retained and explained in some way in the Watt Institution, and I should also highlight that the budget line to pay for the work is actually Discover Inverclyde, and not the recovery of cultural events, as has been highlighted in the paper. And I'm happy to take any questions on the content of the report.
Thanks, Alana. Any questions?
Yes, please.
David?
Alana, did you say the coat of arms was going to be retained in the museum?
We will, yes, we will retain and explain somewhere in the museum. We're creating new displays in the museum at the moment, and the coat of arms will be retained in some shape or form. I'm not sure what that will look like exactly, how that will fit in at the moment to the displays, because the work hasn't been done, but it will be featured somewhere in the museum, yes.
Thank you, Alana. Well, just a supplementary. Will it be the same content as the coat of arms we're discussing today?
Through you, convener. Sorry, Councillor Wilson. Do you mean will it be the same visual, the same?
Yeah. Would it contain the figure of an African?
Yes, it would. Yes.
Thank you, Alana.
But I take it that will be in the historical context of the Gourock coat of arms.
Yes, it absolutely would be.
Displays as a coat of
Yes.
arms.
Lynn, you question? Lynn?
Yeah, so just to clarify, because I think there's been a bit of confusion, you know, I've had many emails, but the decision has already been made, so I'm just trying to clarify, you know, that we're not redoing the decision that's already been made in January. So just for clarity, exactly what is it we're agreeing today? Because I think there's been a misunderstanding that they were redoing that debate from January. So that's probably the first thing, which is important. And then I've got just a couple of points of clarification, but if you could take that one,
Alana?
that'd be good, thanks.
Yes, through you, convener. No, that's absolutely right, Councillor Quinn. The agreement at the paper in January was that the coat of arms would be removed or interpreted in whichever way is most practical. However, it was asked at that time that a paper be brought back doing that options appraisal for each of the instances. So there's no suggestion that this requires a different decision. The decision was that the coat of arms would be removed from display where practical. This is purely a list of the places that we know about where the coat of arms is on display and how we would go about removing it or otherwise in each case.
Okay, great, thanks. I think that was worth clarifying. So can I just ask a couple of questions? So in terms of the entrance to the Gourock municipal buildings, what exactly is happening with the building? It's just, I was really unclear because it was talking about a removal of figures, but what's happened with the shield element of it? Because it distinguishes that in the report.
Yes, through you, convener. One of the, as you know, one of the other suggestions within the report is that we would be looking to create a new coat of arms for the Gourock area. So the idea with the coat of arms, which is above the entranceway to the Gourock municipal buildings, would be that the figurine would be removed and that the coat of arms itself, the shield, would essentially the fascia would be blanked, and that with a future coat of arms hopefully being created, that the new coat of arms could then take its place.
Okay, great, thanks. So I've just done these individually, I just so it's clear and it's not so under 2.4, so the Dardanelles Memorial Fund Committee have agreed to this as well, so it's actually been from a request from them that window is removed as well. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, convener. Yes, that's correct. The Dardanelle Memorial Fund Committee have requested that the window be returned to them, and so that is therefore the recommendation within the report.
Okay, great. And then there's mention of the War Memorial, that the Darrow crest is actually on the War Memorial. Will there be a plaque or something there explaining the links? I'm just conscious, I know that you're talking about you're going to remove the coat arms from Gourock and then it will be displayed and explained within the museum. But will there be anything local that will also do that to record the history, if you like?
Through you, convener, that would certainly be possible to do. The recommendation for the War Memorial, because the figure is not on the coat of arms that's on the War Memorial, the recommendation is to leave it as it is. Obviously, it's a War Memorial, there's sensitivity there, and therefore we're not recommending that it be removed. However, other strands of the historic links to slavery, you know, working group, the subgroups, and looking at further research, it may well be that, and as you know, there's going to be a heritage trail as well, so it may well be that there's other points where we're able to explicate this information.
Yeah, that's good, because I think that was a big discussion about us, you know, raising it. Is it important to record it, you know, not celebrate it, but record it? So, you know, so it's just thinking of a way of doing that, to record it and not erasing it completely. And then the last probably point that I've got is, so we are looking to establish a new coat arms, and I absolutely agree that, you know, so it's been 70 years since we've looked at the coat arms, and maybe we should be looking at what's Gourock means to the community, and, you know, what does Gourock look like currently, and what's the future, sort of looking towards the future. But I'm just exploring, why do we need a new coat of arms specifically, rather than logo, emblem, whatever you can call it. You know, so if we're looking forward, a coat of arms seems a bit backward looking at, you know, so I'm just trying to explore, not that I disagree, I'm just trying to explore why a coat of arms and not another sort of modern version of a coat of arms.
Yes, thank you. Through you, convener. To be honest, it's just one suggestion at this point. If committee agree today for officers to take this forward and to investigate the creation of a coat of arms, I have no doubt that that would include consultation, community consultation on that. And if if it's found that people actually don't wish for there to be a new coat of arms, then it may be something that doesn't go forward. I think it's possibly worth reminding committee that the coat of arms in contention today is not a coat of arms for the Gourock area itself. It's a coat of arms for the Gourock Borough, which was the predecessor to Inverclyde Council. It's a unit of administration that no longer exists. So what we're not doing today is we're not erasing history. We are merely asking to not display a coat of arms of a unit of administration which no longer exists. So we would consult the community on their preferences going forward. And if it was felt that coats of arms were old-fashioned, or if there was no public appetite at all for it, then presumably we wouldn't progress to the next stage.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's merit in, you know, looking at something else. I'm just saying that coat of arms versus emblem. I'm just exploring that, but I think it's good. You know, Gourock likes to keep its own identity, as we say, you know, within Inverclyde. So I think that would be positive, but I probably would welcome that discussion from the community on whether it should be a logo, emblem, or coat of arms. But I think it's actually an exercise worth doing to see what is Gourock to people just now. So yeah, I think that's me. It's I feel that responsibility here as the only Gourock councillor here. It's a bit of a responsibility, and it's quite a sensible thing. So I think we have got a huge responsibility here in doing the right thing and taking a lot of wide-ranging views into consideration. And my job is trying to merge all these to come up with a decision. So I do feel the responsibility quite heavy today.
Thanks, Lynn. I would say I was fortunate enough to go at the prize giving at Cliveview Academy, and Cliveview Academy in the ward line was there, and of course they themselves have just got themselves a new coat of arms. So it's quite interesting that one of our new secondary schools have decided to go for a coat of arms. Sorry, that's just a bit of useless information. Natasha.
Yes, thank you. I just had a question about the cost that we've been given for the removal of the Dardanelles window. So somebody had approached me suggesting that they thought £3,000 was quite high. I've been made aware that it was in the press that there was a process that you'd already followed. Can I just ask, the £3,000, what was the rationale behind the quotes that you were given? Is it because it's a particular type of window? Is it the type of glass that's needed? What is it that came to that, and how has that figure been arrived at?
Through you, convener, it would be my colleagues in property services who obtained the quote. What I am aware of is that I believe at least one of the companies quoted was the company who did all the glass in the Watt Institution when it was refurbished a number of years ago. The quote is for the removal of the Dardanelle window and also for the installation of replacement glass. So it's a total cost for the whole job, and also making good around the area. I'm afraid I'm not able to give any more detail on a sort of property side. I don't know if my colleague Eddie might want to come in on that.
Thanks, Lana. Eddie, have you got any additional information?
Convener, I think Alana's described it perfectly well. I mean, it is the cost I understand that we've obtained is from the subcontractor who was involved in the refurbishment. So it is to match the windows that are either side. So it is, it's a relatively low value project under £5,000. We can seek quotes from a single supplier if we're satisfied that it's best value. So I would need to check with my technical services colleagues as to whether or not they sought any other quotes, but from my perspective, it's a reasonable cost for the work that's involved.
Okay, thank you very much, Alana and Eddie. Thanks, convener.
Okay, thanks, Natasha. Do we have any other questions? David?
Yeah, just very briefly, I've got to say I agree with Councillor Quinn. In a subject like this, it should be very much down to the local councillors, the Gourock councillors. My colleague and I, Councillor Boots, we've got our own view on this. We did speak to Gourock councillors about this, and we're quite happy with the way the Gourock councillors want to go. But from our point of view, what was custom and practice and the behaviour 200 years ago is not necessarily the custom and practice and behaviour today. That's left in history. But I don't believe we don't believe we should be changing history. But in this case, we're happy to go with what the local councillors do. Thank you, convener.
Okay, thank you, David. So with that, can we agree the recommendations? Sorry. Oh, Robert, you want to come in, Robert? Sorry, apologies, Robert.
Aye, Jim, I don't want to extend this conversation any longer than it has to be. And just on the fact that, I was involved, the window was through their Girls Association, which I'm an honorary member, as you know, and we did the march from Dandell's Lane down to the museum, and celebrate, the installation of the window. But as deteriorated, I just like to think that going forward that we don't get ourselves into this sort of mess again, and we sort of legal steps where we get the people with the right intentions, donate the window, but they sign up to an agreement, whereas they just can't turn around and say, well, we're not happy with things now, so we'll work the window back. I don't know if our legal services were involved in this, but certainly going forward, we should get something legally binding, so we're not in a situation again. And I just would hope officers would take that on board going forward.
Okay, thanks, Robert. I agree with you. I'm really hoping that we could have came to a compromise with the Dardanelles windows people, but it turned out it just wasn't possible. So we are where we are with it. So can we agree the paper? Okay, great. Thank you. Can we go along to the next agenda item? It's a substantial agenda item, but for us it's virtually just a noting only, and that's Inverclyde Leisure Strategic Asset Review and funding shortfall. And I'll ask Ruth to introduce the paper.
Thank you. And as Alvina says, this is a paper largely for noting, but I'll perhaps take you through all the different steps of the paper, working backwards, if it's okay, from the appendices. So we were asked by Richie to look at, as part of the delivering differently, at the estate of Inverclyde Leisure, and to undertake a comprehensive review as to what the current estate does look like in both condition and the suitability, but also what that might look in the future, taking into account net zero, but also the costs of keeping the facilities running and repairing them. So Appendix 3 is the result of an officer group and IL working in very close partnership, looking at various aspects. So basically the historical and future investments, the social value. Social value is something that's undertaken, basically saying from a community centre or swimming pool, what would the sort of value for health and the sort of softer side of life be. The condition of each asset and the suitability, of course, the usage and the space. So what would we typically see? The running costs, of course, you can have a high running costs for some buildings with low usage and vice versa, and also the income generation. So with that comprehensive report, officers then looked at the types of recommendations we would make, and that was under delivering differently, looking at just the strategic assets as they were probably sitting prior to the cost of living crisis, in particular the recovery from COVID and also the utilities. And we appreciated that if we were simply to look at this on a financial point of view, that people would challenge us on the fact that leisure estate is there for so much more than making money. It's there for its social value. But if we only looked at the social value and didn't take into the financial costs, people would then challenge us and say, but we've got to get the best value for public pound. So we did it both ways. We looked at it with an assessment looking at a 40% weighting for financial, and then in 3.5 you'll see we also looked at a 70% weighting for financial, and it gave us a different set of results that have basically ranked the different facilities depending on how you want to look at the matrix in different orders. Then basically as ongoing governance meetings within Clyde Leisure looked at what every leisure estate across the country is also looking at, is a huge increase in utilities charges, and also people perhaps the leisure industry not recovering as quickly as we would like post-COVID. And I know that a lot of the reasons around the IL financial position is in the private appendix, and we will absolutely take questions on that at the end. But basically, we also realised that in order to keep running everything that IL does currently runs, there is a funding shortfall, and that gives us a lot of decisions to consider. Now, what we are proposing in this paper is that those considerations are taken as part of the budget process. They're not taken in isolation, but we've undergone the recent consultation on the budget process, and the last questions about IL would be very light if we were looking at considering the entire estate review, and we absolutely appreciate that. So what we are saying is that officers will look at developing further savings proposals to put in as part of the budget process, that we would look to consult on those with IL would consult with specific service users, and everyone will know the reasons why they would need to go perhaps to different users of different assets, and that we would undertake that process during January, and then that would be fed into the budget process as we take it forward through February and March. IL have already, through the permission of the board, begun to undertake a trawl of their employees because the decisions ahead could have an impact upon employment status. So there's a lot of information in the report. It's set out to do one thing through the delivering differently, and circumstances have thrown us in a different way, and considering it probably in a quicker way through the budget process. But happy to answer any questions or to take any questions back to IL themselves as well.
Ruth, see when we've got you on, we've got Eddie here. Obviously, the thing is came full in front of us just now, and people like a conspiracy theory is we've had to close down the Gourock pool. Can yourself or Eddie maybe comment that this is the right committee, and maybe comment about?
So could you just clarify, because I don't want lots of emails tonight. You just said Gourock pool. Yes.
I should have seen Lynn's face.
Apologies for that. Obviously, it's Gourock pool, but I think Port Glasgow. Think of these teeth, Port Glasgow pool, but obviously my comments are there. If we can maybe comment on the progress or the reasons why we've taken the decision to close Port Glasgow pool.
So yes, and Eddie is here. So basically, the decision was taken to close Port Glasgow pool because of the erosion of a pillar. Checks are undertaken. It was found during the check, and property services and building control, working alongside external engineers, have said that the building is currently unsafe. We will need time to go through the next steps and what that may look like, and bring forward proposals. But that's the extent of my technical knowledge, so I'll hand over to Eddie, who will give you a much more technical explanation of what's happening.
Eddie?
Yeah, thanks to you, convener. As Ruth states there, it was brought to our attention through Inverclyde Leisure as part of their activities that there was corrosion or significant corrosion on some of the columns within the pool area itself. These date back to the refurbishment of the pool. It was in the 90s, I think, from memory. We've had a further inspection through external engineers. We also had building standards inspect, and there was sufficient concern on the condition of the steelwork to warrant closure of the facility, so that we can undertake further, more extensive investigations to get to understand what's required to repair that. So at the moment we're engaging further with engineers and contractors on looking at temporary solutions and permanent rectification solutions, and obviously those will come with different timescales attached. So we hope it'll be possible to do a temporary set of works to allow it to reopen, but that is subject to work through contractors and engineers, and then we will develop a proposal for the permanent rectification. So it's completely separate from this reporting process. It's just something that has come up through normal course of operations. We've got concerns over the condition of this. We need to address it, and that's led to the temporary closure of the facility.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Ruth. Open up for questions. The first question is from Robert Manani.
Pardon me, if it's all right, about obviously one of the ward councillors in Portglasgow. No, the thing was, we were informed of this closure, and I'm led to believe there was a series of photographs showing the damage. You know, I would have liked, you know, if it's still possible for ward members to see that, or even better, to be taken into the pool and shown the damage is, because at the end of the day, we're talking from a technical perspective, but the people out in the street don't see that, you know. And if we've got furnished with information that we see firsthand, we're in a far better position then to explain what the situation is. And I come from that sort of background myself, so I think I can fully understand what would be required here. So I just see if there'd be an opportunity to share that information with Portglasgow councillors, but predominantly the Ward 2 who attend Portglasgow Town Centre. And of course, you're right, conspiracy theories are going mad as we speak. But if we were with that information, we could address their comments from a position of knowledge rather than just guessing through reports that we get. But I was led to believe that there was a series of photographs given to some election members to show the damage. I wasn't the ones who received them, and I don't know if any other Glasgow council was. But they've been handy if we would have seen it at the time.
Eddie and Tony, can you maybe take that offline and liaise with the ward councillors in Ward 1 and 2 with regard to the VAS? Obviously, I just raised that because it was an issue that I raised, and it is pertinent to this paper. But maybe if Tony and Eddie can liaise with Ward 1 and Ward 2 councillors to either arrange more photographs to be given or even a tour of the building to show where the damage is, it would be appreciated.
Yeah.
I'm David still as well.
I would just like to clarify, I've not received any pictures, and I've not seen pictures that Robert was referring to.
There it was, yeah.
I did no pictures. I see no pictures.
And hopefully, if they take that on board, good.
Look at it.
I'll open up for questions for members. Other than Robert, Elizabeth.
This is a question that's based on something that was narrated, just in terms of Inverclyde Leisure going through a process of stakeholder engagement, you know, and doing a bit of internal consultation themselves. Were that not the case, I think I would have been asking that they do some, because I don't think our consultation is going to cut the mustard for them entirely. But because that's internal to them, what's going to be the locus for us to see the results of that, so that it can assist us in our budget deliberations.
Okay, Ruth.
So you convening my discussions with Kieran Vango today have been that we would also offer CLD assistance to that, and that we would have full access to their results. Reason being, as part of our impact assessments, we also look at mitigations that can happen. So, for instance, if you're consulting with the users of, say, one community centre, and IL are looking at the totality of their bookings, they may be able to offer people similar types of bookings on a different night, or even the same night but in a different location. So we will be asking IL to look at all the types of mitigations they can put in that may help people with the consultation process as well. What alternatives could be offered to the usage?
That we will see.
Yes,
it's been agreed.
It will be part of the budget process, and it will be in the consultation part of the quality impact assessments.
Okay, thanks, Ruth. Any other questions? Tommy?
Thank you, Leah. I accept there's no decisions being made, but I'm extremely concerned with this report. In my ward, Ward 7, as you're working, I favour Green Road because that is only facility life. And if that goes, there's nothing in Ward 7, right? And I fear for other community centres in the area. They do a lot of good work, under the radar. Off-bound Hall being a prime example of that. But I just think it's quite ironic. We've got inflation running at 10%. It's the highest it's been for years. And yet again, the Scottish Government cut our budget by giving us a flat cash settlement. And I'll be keen to understand and keen to learn whether SNP colleagues here support that decision. Because decisions have consequences. And this is one of the consequences. A 1.46 million cut in the leisure. If that goes through, then we have a direct front and centre detrimental effect in our communities, and there's jobs at risk as well. As a director of Ligate Campus. So I think what we're seeing now, I think Evercleigh Leisure is going to be a totally different being if this goes ahead. And one of the directors would probably agree with that if we have to take as much as what's potentially here.
Is there anything you can comment, Ruth? I suppose it comes down to us as elected members, really. I mean, we're going through a budget process just now. Tommy, I don't blame you for being a preemptive strike on Inverclyde Leisure. I'm sure Councillor Maguire is probably the same on you, and we know that other members feel really strongly about their own community centre, and that's why, lucky enough, us in Ward 4 have not got any community centre, so we can take that overarching view of being superior and everybody else. But I'll let Elizabeth in.
You just come out again, there's a lot of challenge back to us as a group in terms of our position. We are SNP councillors, but we're also Inverclyde councillors who care very much about local government and the role of local government, and we wear both of those hats, and we consistently do so. And it's sometimes I kind of do people think that we're the administration of the council because the amount of challenges that come back to us on that when we're not. What I would say though is that any decisions the Scottish Government have made in terms of their budget have been made in terms of their budget, and they don't have the flexibility to make in-year changes to that. So the budget that was set that we're currently working to was set prior to the situation of inflation being at 10% plus, and obviously there are tough decisions that the Scottish Government have to make in the coming budget decision. We are meeting with our local Scottish Government representatives in terms of that. I don't think we can shy away from the fact that that's the right thing to do. And I think it's good that everybody is going to be around the table in terms of that initial Inverclyde local government to central government, both Holyrood and Westminster lobbying that we're able to do on that front. I'm probably going to get sick of saying this over the period of time, but we keep getting the challenge. Every time we have the opportunity to fight for our sphere of government, we will fight for our sphere of government. That is not a contentious point for us as an SNP group. And I just hope that message gets across because it's never going to change. We are not only wearing the badge of the party that we are representing, we're also wearing the badge of the geography that we're representing, i.e. Everclyde, and also we represent, if we cut us through, we're representing the sphere of government that we represent as well. So Inverclyde, local government, and we have our party badge as well. That's never going to change.
No, thanks for those comments, Elizabeth. Tommy, you want to come back in?
Yeah, just to come back into and I hear what Councillor Robertson is saying, but politics isn't a choice, as we all know, and we will make some very difficult ones in the weeks and months to come. It's about being prepared. It's about having a plan B when things go wrong, and I would hope, and I look forward to hearing maybe updates from Councillor Robertson in the future about what discussions he's had more representation she's made to the party figures start up off to get a better set.
I think it's a wee bit unfair. Just here and now, I mean, we're here and now, we're going through this paper. We've got our officers here, it's for a note paper. I know you're on the budget working group as well, Tommy, as well as Elizabeth and Lynn. So we know these discussions are ongoing. We will make political points as well. I think one of the benefits that Inverclyde has got is the fact that we're all represented around that budget table. And therefore the decisions we make, we're all invested in. Yeah, we can lobby central government and we will lobby central government. But the point has been made. I don't think any, either individual as an independent or anybody from a political party here are in here for the reason to cut services to local government. Your point is made that that's what we're doing. So
I absolutely accept that. I have no issue with that. But I'm quite to voice my opinion.
No.
I respect Councillor Watson's response. That's okay.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Elizabeth. Can I ask, is there any other questions, probably more specific to our officers, so they can give points or clarity is more important here about the actual papers themselves. I think, Robert, you want to come back in this item?
Jim, I'd just like to say I'm quite content with the matrix that we used to come to produce this paper. At the end of the day, it will be up to elected members to make decisions, and the decision might be it's better to save community halls than a gym. That'll be for the public and elected members to decide. But I'm really happy with the matrix we use because it means that everybody has a fair contribution to make, and I would quite happy. I know I'm not happy with the paper, but I'm happy how they came to the conclusions.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Lynn, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I've just got a sort of general question about the paper. So we've just had a session this morning from the Improvement Service about impact assessments and how our decisions impact our communities. So we're looking at this paper in particular. There is so much in there that actually and I'm actually on the board of Inverclyde Leisure, but trying to go through all that and assess what does it actually mean for our communities is very difficult. So one of the things that came up at that session earlier today was to do impact assessments for each part has its own individual impact assessment, but we somehow pull that together so that I would know for each of the protected characteristics, if we cut certain facilities, would a certain demographic have a larger impact than another. And I think that I can't do that myself when looking at that. So is there anything from Inverclyde Leisure looking at the impact? So if we close a facility, here are our general usage for, and if we close this, here is the same, so that what other local authorities were doing was pulling that together, rating every decision and then pulling it together so that you could see the overall impact and not just an individual impact. Hopefully that makes sense. That was my rambles from what I picked up from this morning.
Ruth, I'd like you to comment.
Perhaps I could clarify some aspects of the question just for my own knowledge, and looking at either the IL's savings, but also the totality of the council savings as well. So, if my understanding is correct, you're looking at the quality impact assessments and perhaps looking across the different protected characteristics. So, if there's any particular ones that are looking at either sex or gender, or I don't know the technicalities of doing it, but we can certainly take it away and have a look at that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, for instance, if we've got 50 facilities and potentially disabled people only use 10 of them, and we pick those 10, then in effect that's a bigger impact on someone. So I kind of really, in some sort of one-pager matrix, trying to so that then when I'm making that decision, I'm not blindly penalising one protected characteristics over another. Thanks, that'd be helpful. Sorry, but it's been helpful for us.
I'm looking to see if we've got any other questions. If we've got no other questions in this part, I will ask if there's anything else in the private part of the papers when we get to that part. But if there's no other, can we note the recommendations at 2.1? And can we move to agenda item number 7? And Hugh, you're going to take this?
Yes, Convener, I'll take through the top. Thanks so much, Convener. This paper just for noting. Paper is to note that we participated in round 1 of Community Fund grants for 22-23. This year, the fund was 419,000. 3.7 of the paper gives you an area of his top sliced, and the committee and the agreement about moving other money out of that, which left us a balance to go out to the public of 325,000. 5.1 in the report gives you an update of it. We had 84 one-off applications received for round 1, requesting a total of 763,806.44. Appendix A gives you a breakdown of everybody who had applied for that round 1. It was recommended by the subcommittee to allocate funding to 323,216.58, leaving a balance of 1983.42. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Hugh. Obviously, the grants subcommittee has actually passed, so we're really here rubber stamping and asking any questions on the substance of the paper. David, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the grants to voluntary organisations is a wonderful committee. It helps so many of organisations out there in our community. I was going through and I found eight awards, 3 in Kilmacombe and 5 in Port Glasgow, to organisations that I'm involved with, many of them assigned as a referee for it. My question for you, there was one application from Kilmacombe, from the Kilmacombe Eco Space, and they wanted to have an eco garden. They own no land. This was an attempt to try and get a bit of land to stop a planning application, which has been decided by you and by Tony.
To you. I wonder if members could restrict their comments to talking in general terms about papers and not talking about particular applications.
Yeah, right. There was an application in Kilmacombe for an eco garden that really had no land at all. And it was an attempt to stop a decision that's been made by the council, the full council, for a planning application for a development of 70 houses. I would like to compliment you and Tony for spotting this and stopping it going much further, putting the condition that they're not going to get any money unless they own land. But Hugh, can you assure me that for the future, you've got the procedures in place that would stop something like this happening again? Thank you, Hugh.
Hugh?
For yourself, Convener, this organisation has looked at a number of sites across the Kilmacombe area. So it's not just that one site. As officers, a part of Tony's working group across the asset transfers, we're in discussions with this organisation, and it felt that there was a need to look at supporting some of that across other sites in Kilmacombe, and that's why a condition was put on to look at that. We have a very robust governance in place to look at all applications that come in, and officers only recommend this to go to committee, and it's a final decision by the councillors. But we are very well got a very robust system in place to make sure that these things are noted and reported to the councillors for decision.
So Hugh, the answer to David's question was yes.
Yeah, I would say that's a yes.
It's a yes.
Thank you.
Can I open up to any other questions by any other members? Lynn, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks. So I know what the paper is just for noting, and the committee's already happened. I've just got one sort of request when we're reporting it back. So I know that the new community fund includes the sort of under-19 sports grant. It's just when I'm looking at it, I see they've all been classified as sport. So I would probably like to see if that's under-19 sport or just sport in general, just so we know that the under-19 sport part is still predominantly featured in this community grant. So it's really just to separate those two, because I can't really tell from the the commentary, whether it's young people or not
Good.
so young people.
Yeah, for yourself, convener. Yes, it is. It's still any waivers or allocations of funding. It's mostly for under 19, all for under 19 waivers.
Tony, would you like to come in and elaborate?
Yeah, no, it was just that Hugh's kind of answered it, but it was just to say that we can make that more specific in future reports.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, thanks, Hugh. Thanks, Tony. Any other questions? No other questions? Can we note the report? Noted. And can we quickly just ask, can I quickly move in? Unfortunately, we need to move into private session. Is that okay?